Hello, my name is Nicholas Leifker, and welcome to Week 1 of Management 409. Now, with Week 1, we're going to study two things. The first is that we first need to have some sort of introduction to operations management. After all, what is operations? It's not like someone just tells us this is what operations is. What operations management is, companies have to get stuff done. Companies have to ultimately produce something. They ultimately have to create value. So the question is, how do companies do this? How do companies create value? And more to the point, how do companies maintain value? And why do companies have to create value? Well, much of what we will go over with regard to the introduction is why we take this course, why we look at operations, why we need to study operations. It's not so simple as saying, okay, we have a good process, a good business, and we can just rest on our laurels and never have anything to do with anything ever again. We don't have to think about it ever again. As tempting as that is, that's a very easy way to find your company bankrupt. Because one of the themes that we find within business is that there's this idea of improvement, continuous improvement. Companies always want to get an edge over their competition. So, how do you do that? Well, usually it's done by creating value somehow, or somehow reducing the cost of creating this value. So the question is, what do we need to do to create value? What do we need to do to make sure that we stay in business, that we are creating enough value for our customers that we keep operating, that we keep running? So we need to have some idea as to why we study operations, and that's part of what we are going to learn with regard to the introduction. Also, in the introduction, we're going to look at the history of operations, and we see that there is a theme involved with the history of operations. With operations, it started with simple craft production. Just one person sitting at a desk or table or something, wherever they would work, and they just work on their own. Just this nice individual case where they would just get their stuff done, and that's it. But what we see over time is that one person, just by themselves, that this expands, that eventually it goes from one person to a group of people working together, to a company working together, to groups of companies working together, to an entire world connected together. And that is one of the main themes that we see with operations, that it's not just about us. It's about these connections. It's about how we relate to other people around us, to other companies around us. Also, in the first week, we're going to look at forecasting, and there's a very good reason why we need to look at forecasting. Ultimately, we make decisions. Ultimately, we have to come to decisions that will hopefully improve our company. Those decisions are usually based on something that will happen in the future, will be affected or will affect events in the future. Now, the problem with this is, how do you get an idea as to what the future holds? That's where forecasting comes in. So, how do we get this picture of what the future holds so that we can make decisions for that future? So we're going to look at several things with regard to this. We're going to first look at simple forecasting techniques, things like moving average, things like exponential smoothing. And then we're going to look at more complex techniques, most specifically regression and multiple linear regression, and we'll see how to make these work. Also, just because we forecast doesn't mean that's a good forecast. So we need some way of measuring how well we're forecasting. So to that end, we have various forecasting error measurements such as mean squared error and mean absolute deviation. And we'll talk about those as well. So, for the first week, we study the why we take operations, why we study operations, why businesses are so focused on making their business better. We look at the history of operations, how we went from just one craftsperson at a desk getting stuff done to an interconnected, interrelated world. And also we look at forecasting, various forecasting techniques, and we look at various forecasting error measurement techniques. So, be well, good luck, study hard, there's a lot of work to do. It's a good idea to get the work done, get a good start right off the bat so that you're not playing catch up, and good luck.